Okay, I think we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Unstoppable live stream with Akash and Osmosis. My name is Adam Wozni, and I head up community at Akash. I'll also be your host for today's conversation. Today, we're going to be discussing the launch of Osmosis with two of crypto's finest, in my opinion, Greg Osuri and Sunny Aggarwal. If you have questions throughout today's live stream, feel free to ask them in the chat, and we'll respond to as many as we can at the end of our conversation. One other quick note, after the live stream is over, be sure to follow both Osmosis and Akash on Twitter and Telegram to keep this conversation going. So before we get into the conversation, I wanted to kick off today's live stream with a few Akash updates since we last held our live stream. So first up, we announced our 6th exchange listing on Bittrex Global, one of the most trusted crypto exchange platforms known for their security trading and digital wallet infrastructure. Additionally, we had a 7th exchange listing on BHEX, a leading technology-driven crypto asset trading platform. One of my favorite big announcements that we just launched was Akash has been selected to support the Helium Network, the largest peer-to-peer wireless Internet of Things network, and provide a decentralized, open source, and low-cost cloud alternative for Helium's new blockchain validators. Very cool. And then lastly, which we're going to be discussing here today, AKT was added to the launch of the Osmosis DEX, which allows anyone on the internet or anyone with an internet connection the opportunity to gain access to AKT and start deploying on the Akash network. To learn about these announcements and many, many more, subscribe to our newsletter and follow our blog at akash.network. So before we jump into today's conversation, I want to introduce my guests. And first up, many of you already know him, it's Greg Osuri. Greg is the CEO of Akash and a passionate open source developer advocate. So welcome, Greg. And I was just hoping you could give our attendees a quick introduction for folks that might not be aware of who you are.
Sure, thanks, Adam. My name is Greg Osuri. I'm the founder and CEO of Akash Network.
Perfect, concise, right to the point, love it. Next up, we have Sunny Aggarwal. Sunny is the co-founder of Sika and Osmosis, so he's the perfect person to have on today's live stream. So Sunny, introduce yourself to some of the folks watching.
Hey guys, my name's Sunny. As mentioned, I was the co-founder of Sika and one of the co-founders of Osmosis. I've been working in the Cosmos ecosystem for about 4 years now, and I'm also an advisor to the Akash network or to Overclock. And I'm just really fan of finally seeing I feel like in the last 1 week we've seen I feel Cosmos has actually just finally just come alive, and so really excited to see.
Sleeping dragon awakes.
Yeah. I know, a lot of work in there. We'll get into some of those things in a minute here. So thank you guys for those introductions. We do have a lot to cover today, so I wanted to jump right into some of the questions for each of you. As a reminder to everyone watching at home or in the office or at a coffee shop, leave your questions in the comment section and we'll do our best to get to as many of them as we can at the end of our conversation. So first up, I have a question for Greg. So I did give a brief intro to Akash at the beginning of the live stream, but I think folks at home would like to hear from you directly, the CEO and founder of Akash. So if you could just tell me a little bit about where the Akash network is today, and maybe a few of the things that you're excited about that we're building out for the future.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, the graph that really matters is the Akash, analytics graph. So, what that entails is how we are being used. All right, just give me 1 second.
No worries.
Give me 1 second. Let me. Are you here? Okay, here we are. Sorry, technology issues. Yeah. So far we saw things you don't see on the graph. We kind of track internally, and we kind of add our own insights into it. The most exciting insight for me is the week over week growth. We saw about 17% week over week growth in total deployments. That's humongous if you think about. We're 3 months in, and we're still seeing that very heavy growth numbers. Hopefully this will last for a while, and if that does happen, we're off to the races, right? One of the most exciting things that happened in the last few weeks with Akash is, of course, Osmosis here. I mean, and of course Osmosis being the first DEX and seeing the first real use case for IBC. And Akash being in the forefront, we helped develop IBC Relayer. And more importantly, Osmosis API servers and nodes are actually running on Akash. So it's a self-serving ecosystem at this point. So you can essentially look at the AKT Osmosis pool, and you can, if you're a developer or a validator associated with Osmosis, you can actually pay for your compute using Osmosis tokens by exchanging them on the DEX to AKT and using that AKT to pay for your compute. And since the gas prices are so low, it's actually practical and feasible to do it a lot more frequently in terms of exchanging of the tokens. So that's like the first sort of like self-fulfilling. There is no touching fiat here, absolutely, right? So it's just pure Osmo that's minted on the Osmosis chain that can be used on AKT. That can be converted to AKT and used for hosting. So I'm super excited about that. I think we're going to see a lot more of these use cases. I would love to see some of the persistence hosts that'll be hosted on Akash, and some of the DVPN nodes that'll be hosted on Akash, all not touch fiat at all and actually use AKT through IBC. And several other amazing projects that I've seen come up on Akash. One of them happened to be Open Registry. So for those of you that work with containers know the Docker Hub, the premium registry for containers, is closed, and it has its own set of issues. So our community came up with the idea of hosting that in an open way, and what the way they're doing this hosting is amazing. I just happened to see a demo where they use Skynet Saya as the storage layer for the Linux container images, and Akash as a processing layer. Now that wouldn't happen, even though storage has amazing use cases. That's impossible without using something like Akash, right? So we are seeing these amazing new use cases for a lot of the storage tokens or storage networks because of Akash, and Open Container being one of them. Yesterday, thanks to there is no Max here, Maxim. We're seeing amazing UIs being built. One of the things that I take a lot of pride in Akash Network is its openness and its permissionless nature of it. So we don't have to necessarily build everything we feel the user community needs to use Akash, but rather have community build these amazing tools. So thank you so much for that, for really adding conviction to our values, right? So lots of amazing things being built, lots of amazing growth. Of course, the last but the most, not the least feature is, of course, we have amazing liquidity with the Osmosis DEX now. I believe it's AKT alone has about $13 million of liquidity. What that means is your slippage is so low if you were to perform a buy or a sell operation for AKT pairs. Last I checked, for one of the pools, for Atom Pool, we saw about less than 2% slippage for $50,000 transaction, which is the best liquidity we had history in the history so far. So none of the centralized exchanges could actually provide that kind of liquidity to us, and that's a testament on why a decentralized exchange is the most efficient liquidity provisioning mechanism in crypto. So I'm super excited. This whole week has just been amazing things for Akash and the ecosystem. I can go on, but I'll stop there for now.
No, it's good. I actually took a note just because I feel like I want to make a T-shirt. You said pure Osmo, and you're like no fiat. I'm like, that's a T-shirt waiting to be made. So if anybody wants to memeify that, a pure Osmo, I think that's a great idea.
I think the mascot, I don't know what we're calling the mascot, but I vote for Ozzy Osbourne.
Oh yeah, is it?
That's a good one.
What is it, George Somethington or something? I feel like I've seen that.
Wasmington.
Yes.
I have lots of questions. Wasmington. Right?
Yeah. Before we move on, I do have a question for you, Sonny. Do you know where that came? Where did that come from? The nickname there.
So I made a tweet about a couple of weeks ago. I don't know. I just thought it was funny that Bear Arms sounded like Bear Farms, and I made a tweet where it's like, like this. I just changed the text of the Second Amendment, and I was like, "Oh, Osmosis will fight for your right to fair farms" or something like that. And I just tagged it with George Washington because I was able to put Osmo in there, and it makes no sense. George Washington didn't write the Bill of Rights. Like, I don't know why, but there's like some guy like so then there's a validator now called Wasmington, and I think he just took that and really just started memeing that into, and somehow that's become the name. Like I didn't even expect that was like a one throwaway joke, and somehow that's become his name. And I'm that's what community driven development is. So yeah, I guess it's Wasmington now.
Some of the best projects
never disappoints.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I was curious about that myself. So I would like to see if here's another challenge to people watching: make a George Washington floating in the Potomac, like in the that with holding the American flag or maybe like a crypto flag. That'd be cool.
Mm-hmm.
So now onto real things here. So Sunny, I just wanted to see if you could give us kind of a brief overview of Osmosis. What the people watching on the stream should kind of know about the project.
Yeah, sure. So Osmosis is a DEX that's built for the Cosmos ecosystem. We've been working on this now for, it depends on what you define as it, right? Like I guess you could say maybe we've been working on it for 6 months. Maybe it is from when we started working on Cosmos, so 4 years. I don't know. But yeah, so we decided, we saw that like, hey, okay, there's all these like chains coming on Cosmos. I had these ideas about like, so maybe the best way to do it is tell the timeline of how it started. So about last year, beginning, we went through what we call GORE 2020, the Great Organizational Restructuring of early 2020. So that's when like, a lot of people like sort of left the Tendermint company but then started creating new companies that are still like all contributing to the Cosmos ecosystem. And so me and my co-founder Dave, we had a validator that we called Sika, and so we're like, so we left Tendermint and we just like started working on Sika, and we're like, okay, let's run these validators, let's run more validators, and we also just were contributing upstream like to the Cosmos SDK and to Tendermint, and so we started doing that, and then after a while we just got like, we're like, hey, we don't really like running validators. I want to like go back to building something. So we're like, all right, what do we build? Around then, we got really interested in the front running, like MEV, because that's like, this was last summer and the MEV was just going crazy on Ethereum. And we were just like, let's like figure out how to solve this problem. And so we started building out, we spent a couple of months actually designing a solution, and we came up with a pretty good solution called, threshold encryption. And then, so we took that and we're like, hey, let's start building this. And then eventually we realized, wait, this is a feature, not a product. So what's the product here? And this is sort of when, then this is the time where we merged with the Chainapsis team. So Chainapsis was the ones that they built the Kepler wallet, which is the most popular wallet for the Cosmos ecosystem. And so they had actually built a little, the V0 of Osmosis at a hackathon project last year. And so we're like, hey, let's like just merge together and start building this Osmosis DEX. And it'll be like sort of it'll be the product to take our front running stuff public as well. And so, yeah, since then, this happened all basically in December of 2020. And then for the last 6 months, we've just been sort of, taking a hackathon project and productionizing it, adding in all the like liquidity incentives and all the things that you see on Osmosis today. And it was really, it just launched last week. And it really was like sort of the first actual real usage of IBC. So IBC has been out for about a couple months now. But like, you saw like daily, or like weekly, there'd be like 100 IBC transfers. But then now we're getting like in the tens of thousands, like daily. And so we're just seeing IBC finally being like put to work and used at scale.
So I was just kind of thinking as you're talking, I'm going to go a little bit off the questions that we've kind of reviewed, but I mean, I'm curious, and I think some of the folks at home would be curious, what was that war room like, launch day last week? Take your back to last week. Was it Saturday, last weekend? What was it like being in the room with all the people building it and actually clicking, I'm imagining there's a big red button and you just click launch and then you see like fireworks blowing up. Like, what was it like in that room when that happened?
Yeah, I mean, so one part is just like this was actually the first time where I met a lot of the team. So this started as a quarantine project, right? And so like a lot of the team from Korea, especially, like I met them for the first time, and just also people like even from the US that I just met for the first time the launch week, which was really fun. And yeah, so so we actually did something a little bit interesting where we actually launched the chain like one day before we sort of publicly announced the launch. And we did this because when you launch it, we really wanted to get the UX of Osmosis right. And so to do that, we wanted like a 24-hour period where we can have time to go set up all the IBC connections, set up the front ends, set up the Akash nodes that are like running some of the back ends for a lot of this stuff. So yeah, so we had that like 24-hour period where we could like go ahead and like do that. And then both of those days were pretty crazy. So the first day was getting the chain launch. It's sort of, there's no one big red button that any one person can press, because at the end of the day, it's a decentralized thing. And so, we had all the people who were Genesis validators. They all started their nodes. There's one validator that accidentally had more than 33% of the stake at Genesis. And they didn't realize that it was like, they thought the launch, they got confused with the public and like public launch date versus the chain launch date. And so it took a couple hours for the chain to come online just because of that. But, as soon as we came on, everything went fine. And now, chain is chugging along quite well. And then the public launch day was just a little bit crazy because we just did not expect this. Like we were like, all right, you're going to get a couple hundred users. People are going to start trickling in. It's like all of our stuff was just like overloaded the first day. And we're like, oh my God. But everything should be running smoothly now. Still some stuff that's like being fixed right now. There's like some gas stuff that like the gas cost for every time someone does a bonding transaction is going really high, and that's like causing filling up blocks. So we're working on a fix for that, and both like a fixing why it's doing it, and also just a temporary fix to increase the gas limit. So for anyone listening, please like hold off on the bonding transactions right now.
Wow.
Yeah, for sure.
Those are hard to keep your hands away from, but yes. But I'm glad to hear the system took the load, right? So Akash functioned really well. So this is the first major launch of a project on Akash. So I'm really happy. Things seem to be normal. Of course, once this scale up, once this gas issues with the miners get handled, it's more of a UX problem more than anything else, I would think, right? So it'll hopefully get solved. But system is functioning great. System is working. It's about what, $50 million plus worth of liquidity. I mean, that's without a bridge. I mean, that's something, right? like no bridges yet. Imagine what will happen if the bridges come. So yeah, I was super excited. It's a great launch, and I love the photo that you had with the Sunny and the minions in one call. Yeah, like, hey, SBF, watch out. we got a contender here. That's awesome. Where was that photo taken?
So we're actually all in Miami right now. So we came here for like the Bitcoin week. Turns out we didn't do anything at Bitcoin. We've basically been I've been going between my bed and the WeWork for the last month.
I didn't see you at Bitcoin, but some of my investors saw you and they were like, "Hey, we found someone that's talking about AKT." I'm like, "Oh,
yeah."
Cool. Thank you for that, Sunny. And I think it's good for the folks at home to see, there was a build up. You guys kind of came together. First time you all met was, at launch weekend, which is pretty cool. Kind of getting into like, as you were building it out, as you were kind of thinking through like the build for Osmosis, what were maybe some of the big challenges that you and your team faced along the way? It could be the decentralized nature of the team being in different time zones. It could be, a big technical challenge. But if there's anything that kind of popped up in your head, you're like, oh man, are we ever going to reach this launch date? Because, this thing's happen. Do you have any kind of like story like that, or what was a major challenge you guys faced?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's like a lot of like challenges that we face over time, like on the team one, I guess like, the time zones are definitely a big issue. I think part of it is one of the co-founders actually doesn't speak English. And so it's like, learning how to like, work in such a truly global team is like very interesting. And so it's like that provided some challenges that we were able to work through. On the technical side, just figuring out how to, I mean, even just building this entire like AMM thing, like luckily we didn't work too much on the logic side yet, because what we have right now is we've kind of cloned Balancer and put it onto the Cosmos SDK. But, just an AMM is a pretty, it seems, just X times Y equals K, right? But it's actually, when you go into it, there's a lot of like complexity in the math and stuff. And so making sure that was all done correctly. And we were just really nervous about IBC. Like, I think getting all the relayers working correctly. Like we had, and this is still something we're working on right now, where like, we have the Go relayer and the Rust relayer sort of running in parallel, so that where they can like pick up each other's slack. But turns out maybe that was a bad idea, because I think now they're getting a little bit confused with each other. And so, yeah, I mean, a lot of like these like sort of, I think Osmosis was just, there's a lot of stuff that was like built already, like tooling that exists. Like, for example, we also told all the validators to use Cosmovisor, which is like a way of automatically upgrading people's nodes. And it's like a lot of these tools have been built for the Cosmos ecosystem, but they haven't been used at scale yet. And so I think like that's something that, we were very like, oh my God, this is kind of scary. And like we had to do a lot of testing around a lot of those things.
Yeah, QA, everyone's
a lot
favorite.
Of firsts. I mean, a lot of firsts, right? We have a lot of amazing. I'm just looking forward to hopefully your team publishing some of the best practices, or at least some of the content. I think we learned quite a bit on how to launch. Did you use a starport, or is that?
No, we did not use starport. We just went via the normal traditional Genesis on GitHub.
GitHub. Yeah, it'd be great to just like, to read about your experiences. We can share with them.
Yeah, actually, one thing that maybe is also worth mentioning is the UX of IBC. I think that's something that we had to spend a lot of time thinking about. So, we want to make sure IBC is a complicated thing, and we try to hide that as much from the users as possible. If you go on the Osmosis app, I don't think we actually use the word IBC anywhere on like the page. It's just like, just deposit and withdraw, right? But how do we do this in like a very decentralized way or more user-friendly way? Because on chain, the assets just show up as like IBC dash, like, and then it's like 64 character long hex string, and it's like, what? You can't even understand what that is. And so, one of the things we did was we created something called asset lists. It's this idea similar to token lists on Ethereum, but it's basically it's a mapping between the chain denom and then all the metadata needed to do this. And because the thing is, we have multiple front ends for Osmosis already. So, we have the one that's the Osmosis app that most people use. There's another one called osmosis.imperator.co, and that's sort of more like the uniswap.info, where it's like it gives you all the price data, right? Like historical price data up, and then also they're going to have volume and liquidity very soon, and they have a really cool API that's going to be being used by CoinGecko soon. But yeah, so having this asset list as this like way for all of these front ends to sort of like easily access the metadata of these tokens and stuff. So hopefully we can turn that into a like Cosmos wide standard soon. And then just like figuring out a lot of this tooling on like getting IBC more user friendly. That was one of the main challenges that we had to tackle.
Yeah, we had so many questions, especially on those channels life cycle and like the security of the channel, determining the secure, the stored asset. Lots and lots of questions, but I'm just amazed to see the smooth experience Osmosis did. I mean, not too many people appreciate the complexities that you have to build abstractions on top of. So thank you so much. Love. There's a lot of learning. I'm just particularly excited what comes out of it, and how many new chains we're going to enable, right? So because of this beautiful, pioneering knowledge.
Cool. Yeah. So we're getting a lot of great questions coming in from the live chat. So keep those questions coming. We're going to try to get to those at the end of our conversation. I have a couple more questions for you guys, and then we're going to open it up to the audience. But first, this one's for Greg. So from your perspective, what does this mean for AKT now that it can be, swapped with Osmo, Atom, any of the other listed tokens on Osmosis?
Like I said, for us, it's just, well, it's not a secret that AKT liquidity wasn't the best. I mean, we had amazing, no matter how many exchanges we go to, it's just the liquidity hasn't quite caught up with the demand. So I'm particularly excited to have a way healthy order book for Akash. And turns out the solution was an AMM to get the depth, the ideal depth. Now about $50,000 under 2% slippage, right? So
Yep.
that in itself is a huge win, not only for us. Look at what happened with DVPN, right? So with our friends at Sentinel, um, they're going through a similar process, and a big challenge right now. Not too many people talk about it because we're in the process of running a company and getting the token more liquid. Is the if you're not an ERC20 token or one of the exchange chain tokens, that means if you're not like a BSC token, if you're not like one of those tokens, it's next to impossible to get listed because there's a heavy integration work that they need to do, or unless the exchange has a huge upside, which is a different story, right? So a lot of times you're like, well, what comes first? Does the liquidity come first, or does the exchange listing come first, right? It's a chicken or egg problem we're into. So exchanges don't list non-ERC20 tokens unless there is liquidity that they think you can attract. So now amazing projects in the Cosmos ecosystem that have live usage and live adoption that's growing around the utility are stuck in so many ways, and Osmosis is an answer. Even projects of Akash stature, now we're what 150 top 150 in terms of market cap, with close to about $300 million in market cap. Even projects like that are having trouble getting liquidity, and I think Osmosis just changed the game, just crushed the whole thing. So I'm super excited what Osmosis did, not only for us, like I said, to DBPN. Now we are seeing with the Regen network, which is a new token that's just a Cosmos ecosystem token. I'm super excited about it. I'm going to ape into it, so some alpha there. But now for someone like something like Regen, just a launch on a platform, they were attracted about $3 to $4 million in liquidity, right? It's not even 1 week. So you have this
So
launch
Regen actually did
platform.
something. Regen
Yeah.
actually has something called. They're using something called a liquidity bootstrapping pool. So what with AKT, for example, it still was on some exchanges. So there was this like public price that was known. But for Regen, this was the first time they were doing any sort of public sale, and they didn't know what the price is. And so they actually we created something called a liquidity bootstrapping pool, where it's basically a system that it's an AMM that sort of acts like an auction at the same time, where the price starts really high and then it starts to slowly drop, and then people can start over like a 5-day period, and people can start buying and selling when they think the price is at the right point. And so I think these LBPs will be make it even easier for us. You don't even have to. It'll make it very easier to start by launching a token via
I
Osmosis
love
as
that.
well.
If I remember correctly, it began with a 85% to 15% split between Regen and Osmosis, and Atom. And as the price keeps coming down, obviously the percentage of of Regen comes down, and the Atom goes up to a point to a point where it's 50-50, right? So that's when the final price. I love that. I love that.
And then it just looks like a normal AMM at that point, and then people can start adding more liquidity, and you go seamlessly from the auction, and then now you have an AMM pool.
Right. Is that the first time people are doing something like this, or is
No. So this idea of an LBP is actually also borrowed from Balancer as well. And so there's a couple of protocols that have done this on Balancer. The one that I know best is actually called Radical, because the co-founders of Radical used to work at Tendermint 2 or 3 years ago. But yeah, so they actually used the Balancer LBP as well. So we borrowed that idea from them, but we have actually a lot of ideas of how to improve it, because I think the way it's done right now, there's a lot of room for improvement. So LBP, and we're just getting a lot of demand from Cosmos projects. I think Stargaze has reached out to us being like, hey, we want to do an LBP, and then Desmos has reached out to us, and so we're like, all right, I think we're going to start working on this LBP 2.0, so provide an even better experience for all these new initial liquidity offerings, I guess.
there you have it. So you have a launch pad for Cosmos ecosystem tokens.
Yep.
Yeah, so lots of things to be excited about. And like for us, like I said, creating a self-sustaining ecosystem. Now you can see with liquidity bootstrapping, the ecosystem is self-serving itself. With we want to see more, of course, trading pairs that are more stable in nature come to Osmosis. So lots of exciting things coming to Osmosis.
Cool. So I have one more softball question for you guys, and then I'm looking through these audience questions, and they're going to get a little bit more difficult for you. So just from kind of both your perspectives, how do you perceive Osmosis kind of benefiting, developers, investors, and businesses?
I can take that. If not, Sunny, if you want to take it.
No, go ahead.
Well, developers is obviously now you have liquidity bootstrapping mechanisms that you don't have to go through a centralized exchange, and you can build sovereign chains and still get liquidity for that sovereign chain. That's the first time I'm hearing, right? So as developers, for us, I've been through this whole process. Is like when you're building a blockchain based product, you have to decide what you want to optimize for. Do you optimize for liquidity first, or do you optimize for usability first, right? You had to make the trade-off so far. So if you optimize for liquidity, you end up creating an ERC20 pair, and that's not actually usable especially something like a cloud deployment token, right? Or if you optimize for usability, you end up something like Akash, where people are actually using AKT to deploy things. I find it very hard that you'll use a ERC20 token to deploy something, right? Because of the gas costs. It's just ridiculous. And Osmosis is a paradigm shift that the developers no longer need to make the trade-off, right? I think that's a huge deal. I have so many projects with incredible utility, and I would just cry myself every time I advise them to actually go with the ERC20 to begin with, to bootstrap liquidity. So now we don't have that problem, and soon enough the bridge is going to get built between ERC20 and Cosmos ecosystem. Now we can attract that liquidity as well. It's very easy to see the Osmosis just becoming a massive liquidity provider very, very soon. For investors, obviously you have better liquidity, so it's great for everybody. And what's the third category of people that you said would benefit?
I said developers, investors, and businesses.
Well, businesses get to use, for Akash at least, you have both your data centers as well as your tenants, right? So they get to actually, use like AKT and liquidate AKT without incurring huge slippage. So, so it's everybody wins here.
Cool. Anything to add, Sunny, or you feel like that's about spot on?
I think that's pretty spot on. Yep.
You guys planned this out. You're like, Rick got this. He's fine. Cool. So that kind of wraps up my questions, but we've got a lot of questions coming in from the chat. If you guys
have a few more questions. I mean, this is
please.
Kept getting asked. What is ION?
I don't know. Like I just It just happened, and I woke up one day and I'm like, wow, what did I do last night? There's a couple of commits from me, and I just added this ION thing. I don't remember what I was thinking last night, but I guess it's there now.
Is that the answer we're sticking with?
That's seriously what. It's the truth.
Do you know any supply metrics of it?
Yeah, there's about 21. There's about 21,000 something, like 200 something or so. I do remember what the distribution mechanism was, but I'm excited to see if people figure it out.
Okay.
I'd rather let it be. Some people are guessing. Oh, is it random or it's not random? There's definitely there was a logic to it, but
I see.
We'll see if people figure it out.
Well, I did hear a few things. I think I did hear if you participate in Cosmos governance, you get ION airdrop. I didn't get ION airdrop, so I never participated in the governance, I suppose. So 21 million IONs in existence. What is it going for now? 21,000. Okay.
21,000. Yep.
So what is it going for? Like $1,000, $1,000+ now per ION?
I don't know. I don't really check that much. I know if you go on the Imperator website, I think they have like I don't know if it's on their website. I know they have an endpoint that shows like the prices for some of these tokens because they're trying to get that over to the CoinGecko team. But yeah, it's been a little bit crazy. I mean, I didn't expect it to. People seem to like their ions.
You know, it is what it is. It's the ion.
Yeah.
That's the
And
answer.
what's really cool though is what we've seen is actually the community has started like there's a Telegram group and people like coming up with proposals for how they can build like use ions to like add utility to it and like make it something useful within the Osmosis ecosystem. And so that I think I'm really excited to see this sort of like community being formed around this like token.
Yeah, absolutely. Second question: any plans on using HNS DNS for Osmosis?
Yeah, so we actually have the handshake names already. So we have the DNS names. Yeah, I guess I can point it at it. I'm actually not too familiar with like, how do you use HNS domains? Like, do you have to like run
Namespace? Well, there's a hosted solution called Namespace that makes your life a lot simpler. You can go through that, or you can figure out the CLI.
No. So I have them on I have them on Namebase already. But my question is like, as a user, where do I type in a handshake name?
Oh, so Namebase hosts a DNS, right? You can actually put the DNS entry there, and if you're hosting the UI on wherever Akash, there's a entry in your SDL file for your accept under your accept thing that you can put the handshake name. And I'll send you the configuration. I use that for my website as well. Awesome. Yes, cool. Osmosis will be using handshake. HNS to the moon.
Yeah.
Cool. Any more questions, Greg?
I mean, for me, I'm just reading off community questions. So what do you got? Yeah,
that's kind of what I was going through. The Ion one was definitely one of them. One that seen come up was, I think it's directed kind of at both of you. Will AKT, I'm going to try to read it up right. Will we get an AKT boost for liquidity pools with AKT in it? Same or similar to Osmosis incentives?
I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, teams can provide incentives in native tokens. We can do AKT incentives, right?
Yeah, so I've already so I believe there's already a plan right now where you guys are adding AKT incentives. So currently anyone can add additional incentives into the gauges beyond just the base Osmo incentives. So, I think you guys are planning on adding some AKT incentives to some of the gauges. I believe either the Sentinel or Persistence team, I have a DM sitting in my Telegram right now where it's like, oh, how do we add like DVPN incentives or something? Or it might have been Persistence. I have to go check. But yeah, I think that's also going to be like a huge thing where like teams can start adding external liquidity incentives.
Yeah, the APYs are what, 3 commas right now. So APIs are like 4 digits right now. So I think incentives are pretty much before we can add on additional AKT. But yes, to answer the question, additional AKT incentives are coming. So that's going to be a lot more fun, a lot of fun too.
Cool.
Cool. So a question I'm actually interested in as well, and it's for Sunny. Is there any work on bringing a stablecoin on board?
Yeah. So there's a couple different like strategies for this. So yeah, not having a stablecoin is definitely a UX harm for Osmosis right now. And so the two things, one is UST, right? Like I want to get a real decentralized stablecoin, and I really like the UST design. I'll admit I was actually very, Sika never ran a validator on Terra because when I first saw the design 2 years ago, I was very skeptical. But I think over time I've just grown to like really like the design a lot, and especially after that crash that happened like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and how Terra was able to like maintain its peg, I was like very impressed. Interestingly, I think Terra UST is what I think part of what I really like the Fey design, and I thought it was like a really well architect or like very unique design. And then when I realized that UST is actually just simpler Fey, simpler and more reflexive Fey, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty interesting. So already in touch with the Terra team about this, and so you saw just like 2 or 3 days ago they just tweeted saying that hey, IBC is coming in their next upgrade. So that should be really fun when we can get UST coming into the system. The other though, oh, go ahead.
Oh, that'd be great for us as well, because we want to enable US, stable currency payments for Akash. I think UST on Osmosis will put us there. I'm super excited.
And they also have so many other cool assets as well, right? They have all the mirror assets and all that kind of stuff. Then the other though as well is, also just getting more, fiat collateralized stablecoin. So the e-money team, they have like the Euro stablecoin that they have. And so they're adding IBC soon as well. But we're actually probably going to, even faster than that, what we'd like to do is just add in a module that allows anyone to mint new tokens. And so if you can just go ahead and mint a token on, permissionally mint a token. One second. Oh, okay, sorry. Sorry, my headphones just like did a ding. So yeah, the e-money will just be able to, their team will just be able to issue euros or their digital euro on the chain directly. And we're also, we reached out to the Circle team about how we can get USDC on as well. That, these are all things they're like looking into it. I know they're excited to get like USDC into Cosmos, and I think Osmosis might be like the thing that finally like, okay, now this is like there's something that the USDC will be being used for. So yeah, so I think there's going to be like a lot of. I think the stable coins are coming, but yeah, and it's definitely a big focus for getting those soon. I do think the first one the fastest will probably be the e-money one, which will be very interesting because the euros will be the first stable coin on Osmosis, and that'll be really interesting. Just unique, or maybe, I don't know. We'll see how that goes.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, Cosmos DeFi on interchain DeFi, I want to call it. I don't want to call it Cosmos DeFi because this is really when you have USDC and all that come up, I think it's just gonna take off. Yeah, I mean, we are like there can be an explosion of the possibilities of sovereignty, composability over sovereignty. So I'm really excited.
Cool. So another question that came in for Sunny here. How do you envision the relationship between Osmosis and GravityDex as things kind of develop?
Gravity?
Yeah. I think I think GravityDex will just move on to Osmosis soon. Like that's my bet. I think that the batch execution model that they came up with is really cool, and I love batch execution systems. Back at Tendermint, I actually helped build a DEX with a batch. It was an order book one, but it had batch execution. We never ended up launching anything with it, but so yeah, I think that. I don't think that a DEX belongs on the Cosmos Hub, to be honest. And so when we started Osmosis, we actually were like, hey, let's build this on the Cosmos Hub. And then as we like went through, we're like, this is going to have a lot of issues. Like, because one, we're just not going to be able to upgrade as fast as we need to. Like, Osmosis is, we were like told validators like, hey, be ready. Like, we want to do upgrades on like a monthly basis. Like we should be like, we want to be constantly adding new features. And so I just don't think the Cosmos Hub can do that. That's not what the Cosmos Hub is like designed to do. And then on top of that, you just need to have, I think a good platform needs to be owned and governed by its users. And it's hard to do that with the Atom token just because it is so widely distributed, and it was distributed with like a different purpose than like being this AMM platform. And so, I'm excited to see how the GravityDex launch goes, but I do think, eventually we'd like to just see that like those the batch execution model come over to Osmosis as well.
Cool. I just made a note that you think DEXs should be owned and governed by the users. I just thought that was a good phrase, so write that one down.
We're excited though to use the once like the Gravity Bridge and stuff is up on the Cosmos Hub. We'd like to use that and like be able to get all those ETH assets into Osmosis soon as well.
So that actually, yep. So that was a good question that somebody popped up here a minute ago. Will Osmosis act as something like an IBC wallet to hold assets from multiple chains once the bridges are built? And kind of a follow-up was, will we be able to hold ERC20 tokens in the Osmosis Assets tab?
Yeah, so once the Gravity Bridge is up, then we'll be able to. We might end up we're sort of figuring out whether we're going to use the Cosmos Hub's Gravity Bridge or whether Osmosis should just build its own gravity bridge, or like use it for the same reasons. Like, Sommelier also like kind of uses gravity bridge and then adds all these extensions on top. And I think by having our own gravity bridge, we might be able to just, one thing is like, Osmosis's UX right now would not work if it weren't for Kepler. Like the way that Kepler is designed with its like ability to like the suggest chain feature and all this kind of stuff, like that enables the UX flow that we've built. And so I think by having our own gravity bridge, we'll be able to like add, that'd be really cool to be able to, allow people to store their assets within Osmosis and like, use it as a wallet, as you say, like, keep assets here. And I really think it can become like one of the best, dexes, like sidechain dexes for Ethereum and other chains. And we'd really want, we'd want to be able to connect to any EVM chain, not just mainnet Ethereum. We'd like our gravity bridge to be able to connect to Polygon and, Arbitrum and all the Binance Smart Chain and like all these like EVM based chains. I think a generalized gravity bridge is really good.
Cool. One more for you, Sunny, then I'll have one for you, Greg, next. So for Sunny, does Osmosis incur slippage?
Yes. I mean, any AMM will have to incur slippage sort of that's what an AMM is. But we're working on designs for how to improve the slippage. So, as mentioned, currently we have vanilla balancer, but over time, I think we're going to have I think there's like different ways that people can take AMM design. I think the Uniswap V3 folks, they took the AMM design in more into like an active market making approach, something very similar to like, if Uniswap V3 is almost somewhere in between an AMM and an order book. We were actually working on a somewhat different design for how to do like, more concentrated liquidity. And then it turns out 3 weeks ago, Curve released their Curve V2. And we're like, oh, wow, that's like so similar to what we were building. And so that's really great like validation that like, hey, okay, we were like thinking on along the right ideas. And so, I think we really like the Curve V2 design where like you concentrate liquidity around the current TWAP price. But I think there's some things that obviously because of launch, I haven't gotten a chance to really deep dive into the math behind Curve V2, but like, looking forward to like checking that out and seeing like, okay, are there improvements that we can make? What, if we really want to focus on the batch execution, what things might we want to change from Curve V2 and stuff like that. So I think that will help massively reduce the slippage that traders face. You can never have zero slippage though. That's just not what a DEX is.
Yep. That's what in the exchanges, right? You cannot have zero slippage.
Exactly.
Order book. There's always a buying and selling happening.
Yep.
Maybe it's too soon for this. I know it's been less than a week since it launched, but people are stoked to kind of see what's going on next for Osmosis. Do you have some kind of like future plans? Like what is the next thing you kind of want to focus on, like putting into it?
Yeah. I think they're sort of the three main things that we're going to be focusing on right now is, AMM design. So that's like, like I mentioned, getting to batching or Curve V2 style stuff. That's like number one. And also adding governance to the pool. So like the pool should be able to use governance to update their parameters. So if they want to change the swap fee, or if they, let's say you have a pool that's like, 33% this, 33% another asset, and 33% another asset, you should be able to use governance to change the ratios. And you can actually, the same mechanism that's used for a liquidity bootstrapping pool can also be used to change the allocation of a pool, but you do it slowly. So there's not like this like crazy. Yep. So that's one thing we're doing. The second focus is the front running resistance. Like I mentioned, that's sort of where it all started from. And so, that's something we're doing, making sure that people can't get front run. And I think that will probably be one of the highest, like, when we connect to Ethereum, I want to like make sure that there's something that's like, oh wow, this is something that no other DEX can provide right now. And I really think that front running resistance will be that like killer feature for a lot of people. And then the third piece is something we're calling superfluid staking. So it's a form of staking derivatives. It's a type of liquid staking, but it's a superfluid, where what it means is if you have Osmo and you use it in a pool, so let's say you pair Osmo and AKT, and you can get back the LP shares. Currently, you bond them and you start earning liquidity rewards. We'd also like it so you can also. Currently, when you have Osmo, you're deciding, should I stake or should I LP with it? We want you to actually be able to use your LP shares for staking itself. And so this way you'll be doing both at the same time. And so now you don't have to, and the LP shares will still be, bonded and slashable if the validator misbehaves. So this is a way of like using all the Osmo value of liquidity in the pool to also contribute towards network security as well.
That's only possible for Osmo pools.
Yeah, so it would take the Osmo value of the pool. So let's say it's an Osmo AKT pool. There's $50 million of Osmo, $50 million of AKT. When you take an LP share, it'll use the Osmo part of it.
Right. Fair enough.
So that's another T-shirt. I'm going to put a challenge out there: superfluid staking. I think that would be really cool. So there's another challenge to the community out there on top of pure Osmo. Cool. So I want to ask maybe a couple more questions before we kind of wrap things up here. First one is, this is kind of another similar to like asking about the gravity index. How would you compare Uniswap to Osmosis?
Yeah, so Uniswap, Uniswap V2, I guess, it's much simpler than Osmosis, right? Balancer basically took the idea of Uniswap V2 and really made it multi-dimensional, all these weights changes and multi-assets, and that's what we're based off of now. Uniswap V3, however, it's more, they took the approach of allowing the LPs to be more active, where you can say, hey, I as an LP want to concentrate my liquidity around this, this price band. And that makes sense. Makes a lot of sense for some assets. Let's say you have a stablecoin to stablecoin pair. It's why are we providing liquidity at the very far edges of the order book? That's just the order book. Why not just provide all the liquidity in this smaller band from 95 cents to $1.05, right? But the problem is when you have a more volatile asset pair, this actually takes a lot of. Basically, by concentrating your liquidity, you're getting more fees, but you're also taking on much higher impermanence loss risk, because if the price swings past your price band, you end up holding 100% of the less valuable assets. So you're basically magnifying your impermanence loss as well. And what this does is it basically makes it so the active people, the people who are the best market makers, are going to be the ones who can provide liquidity the best, and they're just going to get outsized returns at the expense of the less sophisticated market makers. And I think this kind of goes away from the whole point of AMMs. I think what made AMMs so exciting was the fact that anyone can just come in and put liquidity in the pool, and it's forget about it, basically, right? It just sits there. And that's what allows you to also do this sort of LP bonding kind of stuff the liquidity gauges and stuff that we've created. So our approach is more that we want better algorithms so that the pool can do this concentrated liquidity for the users, rather than the users having to go figure out how to best do concentrated liquidity themselves. And yeah, maybe the algorithm that we have might not be better than what the best market maker can do by doing it their own concentrated liquidity. But I think just the amount of liquidity it will be able to bring in, because it can bring in all these passive people, well, I think it can outshine the active market maker approach that V3 is taking.
Cool. All right, so I have two questions. One,
to simply put what Sunny just said, if you're a non-sophisticated passive investor like me, I'm not an investor, I'm an engineer. So put my LP tokens and forget about it, and the algorithm will try to give me the best outcome. Versus something like a Uniswap, which is a lot more basic, you will not be able to. You'll be exposed to a lot of the sophisticated risk, right, from other sophisticated actors. Did I get that right, Sunny?
Cool. Thank you for that explanation there, Greg. All right, we'll have two more quick questions, and we're going to wrap things up. First is, would Osmosis integrate with a DEX aggregator like 1inch?
Maybe. I mean, I think so. What's nice is now I think some of the integrators have been aggregators have been, expanding to more chains. I think a lot of them are still pretty EVM focused right now, but I think some have actually started reaching out to us already. So Slingshot, they mentioned to us like, hey, be interested in adding in Osmosis as well. So we'll see. I think over time we'll have more, especially once the Ethereum assets start to flow in. I think that's when all these aggregators will be wanting to come in. But at the same time, I really think it'll be really cool to see like some more Cosmos native stuff like happening as well. I think like new projects that will come and like build aggregators and that are between that go between Gravity and Osmosis, for example, right? I think one of the things I've been doing, a lot of people are asking like, hey, when are we connecting to Ethereum? And I'm actually a little bit okay with like being a little bit slower on that because I want to give time for the Cosmos DeFi to sort of really mature. One of my favorite, Alexander Hamilton is one of my like favorite like economists, and one of the things he did early on in the history of the United States was he like put up very high tariffs. Which is very like anti-free market in a way, right? Because that very different than like people think that America is built on Adam Smith ideals, but it's not. It's built on Hamiltonian ideals. And like Hamilton was like, all right, no, we want these high tariffs because we want to give time for the United States to build up its own industry. Otherwise, you're just gonna get like European industries just gonna come and dominate the US. And that was the Jeffersonian vision, right? Jefferson wanted it to be this like very agrarian society. But Hamilton's like, no. We need to have a little bit of protectionism early on just so that we can kickstart our own internal development. And then the tariffs go away once America is ready to compete with the outside world. And so I think it's really cool. I'd like to see like a little bit more development happening in Cosmos first, and then we open the floodgates. That we want to make sure that there's really something truly great here for when the Ethereum people come. It'll be like, oh wow, this is something that's actually better than what we have on Ethereum.
I think the protectionism argument is not only in the US. I think if you look at in India or China, actually most economies had a very protectionist regime in the beginning while they're bootstrapping, and then the free markets came in. But it's a very valid very valid point you brought. Yeah.
I love it because only on the Unstoppable live stream are you going to get some crypto knowledge and some U.S. history knowledge. So I'm into that. we should do a whole other live stream just on your thoughts on Hamilton.
Keep in mind, in college, before I dropped out, I was minoring in political economy. So that's kind of how I got into Bitcoin, because I was doing like computer science and political economy, and that's like, oh, Bitcoin.
That's great. Last question, simple, fun one. This came in from the community. I was just like, this is too good not to ask. So for Sunny, and Greg, you can answer too if you like. Do you like your eggs over easy, scrambled, or sunny side up? I get it, sunny side up.
I like them sunny side up.
I actually do like them sunny side up as well.
There it is. That's it. The jury has spoken. Cool. Well, thank you guys so much for taking out time out of your very busy day. I know both of you are very busy to have jump on the live stream. With that, we're going to end today's live stream. I want to thank everyone that's joined, all of I think we almost made up to 100 plus folks that were on this at any given moment. And for the folks watching at home, Greg and Sunny, how can people get a hold of you online?
I'm available on Twitter. You can follow me at SunnyA97. Yep, just like the title card. And then, just DM me there. My DMs are open. Perfect.
And Greg?
I'm at Greg Osuri on Twitter. I'm very active on Twitter. DMs are open. Feel free to reach out. And Telegram, G Osuri. And also, fun fact, Sunny does this amazing thread on a geopolitical thread that gives you fun facts that that I love personally. So I highly recommend you follow him. They
Last
bring
time I was
so
on
much
the
joy. Like
yeah. Last time I was on the live stream, I think I was quizzed on some of them. That was fun.
Do you want to
One
do
of
a quiz? Give me
yeah,
one
you
random.
can.
Before we go, give me one random geographical fact
You have to tell me
about
like a place.
about El Salvador. Let's see. El Salvador is in the
Oh,
news today.
Topical.
El Salvador was the one that did the Bitcoin,
Bitcoin.
right? Like the Bitcoin. Okay. Man, I don't know if I know anything about El Salvador, to be honest. Paraguay, which borders El Salvador, is the only country that has like a different flag. Like the front of the flag is different than the back of the flag. They're the only country that has that actually a two-sided flag. That's not El Salvador. That's Paraguay. I don't know why I brought.
That's close. I mean, they're a
Still
second country
interesting.
to introduce the legislation to make Bitcoin a legal tender in Paraguay.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we're close.
Well, one of the things I've definitely noticed was this week I actually failed to post a geography fact twice, and that's like I have not missed a single day in like over 2 years. But that's I guess I think that's been the greatest casualty of launch was my geography fact like rigorousness.
Cool. Well, guys, I do want to thank you both again for joining. As a reminder to everyone watching, Osmosis is now live. To go and gain access, go to osmosis.zone and check it out today. Lastly, if you want to keep this conversation going, you can go find Akash and Osmosis's Twitter and Telegram channels. And then again, I want to thank you all for joining. Thank you, both Greg and Sunny. This was an awesome event. I learned a lot. I hope people watching learned a lot. But stay tuned for the next one, and we'll see you around.
Thanks, guys. Thanks so much, Sunny. Thanks, Adam.
See ya.